Hey everyone, it's Blinded by the Sun guy here. Today, it's actually really nice and warm, so I'm outside working in the garage, and now that my Coupe Infinity shell is gone, and I have a lot more space in here now, the engine is still hanging out here for now, but that'll be disappearing soon. But anyway, I figured that I'd start working on the next thing, because obviously I just kind of have to wait for people to buy the parts that I have, which there are quite a few still. But I'm going to be using some of them to make a Go Kart. Let me show you what I got so far. So this is kind of where we're at. Actually, this is where we've been at for a long time now. Difference is that the engine is sitting on a plate that I cut out for it from its original pressure washer chassis. And then the same thing over here. These pieces have been cut out for a while, but I'm actually getting ready to assemble the basic structure of the frame today because I've got the metal that I'm using for it. I've got it all cut approximately to length. It's a little bit too long. I think it's about 5.5 feet, something like that for those of you who speak Imperial. So yeah, that's about where it's at. It's kind of long, and it's going to be quite a long go-kart. I mean, ultimately, if I don't like it, I can shorten it fairly easily just by cutting a section out of the middle and then welding it back together. But I'll let it get to that if we need to. But for now, I'm just going to start working on the chassis, as I have been for the past hour or so. So what I've been doing is cutting pieces out that I'm going to be using. As an example, these things here show you in some better light, but they are the spindles, I would say. Maybe that's the right term for them, that I'm going to be using for the front wheels. And now basically, for a go-kart to be able to turn, at least simply, I'm going to need to make some brackets for these, and then the front wheels will sit on those. Naturally, this go-kart is going to be rear-wheel drive. I don't have the parts to make that happen yet, but the engine is going to sit off to the side, just because I feel like that's the best course of action for this. And then yeah, I'm gonna try and get an axle for it. It's just going to be an extremely simple clutch on the engine, direct driven by chain to a sprocket on an axle, which the sprocket will be welded to the axle, and then the axle is going to be attached to two wheels on the back, so it'll be two-wheel locked in the back, based on my understanding of things. I could do it one-wheel drive, and that might be a little bit easier, and that would allow me to center the engine a little bit more, but I think that's kind of lame. So we're going two-wheel drive, and with combination between the length of this and the fact that it's going to be two-wheel drive, its steering is going to be absolutely horrible. So yeah, it might be good at top speed, but its turning radius is going to be hot garbage, and it will not have reverse. Again, to introduce you to the build, this is a Honda GC 160. I believe it's a 5 horsepower Honda gas engine from a pressure washer, and this is the kind of pressure washer that it was. The pump was toast on the pressure washer, and it was given to me by my grandfather, so thank you to him for that, because these Honda engines are awesome. So wheels are hiding in there. Can't actually see them. The light is a little bit off. There you go. Wheels and then bolts for the engine are in there. That's what's in the strawberry container. But yeah, gist of it is bed frame, pressure washer, and then some parts from Amazon, or maybe a store if I can find them. And that's going to be that. Under $100. I've got myself a custom, probably really crappy go-kart. So let's get started. Because I don't have those rear end parts I was talking about, my goal for today is essentially just to cut these two bars. I'm going to be using these as crossbars. One of them is going to be for the seat, and then the other one is going to be for the front end, because I do want to have a solid front end. The back is going to be a little bit funky because the rear cross member is going to be incorporated into the engine mount, but until I have my rear end chassis parts, I'm not really wanting to commit to a weld on the rear end yet. Obviously, that needs to be done based on where I can put the axle, where I can put the, well, the chain and the gears and such. So that's going to be a whole new world for me. I haven't actually delved into that stuff at all. I'm just trying to make this relatively serviceable. Like, obviously, this is what I'm thinking for the seat, but it's not going to be leaning on the gas tank. I'm going to try and make it so it's easy to fuel, easy to pull in the starter. And then eventually, I do want to have a throttle cable as well, instead of just having to reach back. So yeah, this will be fun. Okay, so this is the general gist of what's going on at the moment. I wanted to sort of get the frame set up today, and I've done just that. Now, before you look too closely at those welds, know that I will paint them so they aren't going to look that hideous all the time. And I should say, again, I'm not a welder. The entire purpose of this is to practice, except my welder sucks and it only has 2 power settings, so it's either max or min, and today I'm on max. I really should have bought a welder that has a variable power setting, but anyway, this one was cheap as heck, and that's the reason I'm using it. So you can see on this side I didn't really get good penetration. On the other side it's better. I'll try to show you that. Yeah, there you go. A lot better penetration on that side, but my welds are not great. I should say again as well, these are flux core welds with no gas. That one actually, oh goodness, is it even going to show? That one isn't too bad. I like that little top corner there, but everything else is just not good. So expect that for the future as we move forwards here. So this is the seat. At least this is the work in progress for the seat. We have the extreme thing up there. This is where I expect to be mounting the engine, so I kind of took my measurements for the seat based on that, and the entire cart is looking like this. Now this one bar here is not enough for the seat, as I have discovered. I welded this bottom piece on there as well, extremely roughly. Oh man, everything is out of focus, but yeah, this is crust heaven right here. I still gotta wipe these ones off. And I gotta grind this one down a lot, a ton in fact. There's some, oh wow, everything over here is extremely hot, but there is some better stuff over on this side. Again, penetration is key. If you have any welding tips for flux, and also for a cheap welder like this one, please let me know. I'm really just trying to learn, like that is the whole point of making this go-kart, is to practice welding. I made a Christmas tree stand, and that was sort of the first thing I ever made, and now I am making a go-kart, which is a little bit, well, it's a little bit more important that the welds stand up. With the Christmas tree stand, I added a lot of redundancy to make sure that it wouldn't fall over, which would be hilarious, but also my wife would be pissed. But I was thinking, like, this one, obviously I've got to do better, because if I don't weld this seat in properly and I'm going down the road, it could totally just fall out and that would suck. So I want to reinforce this a little bit, probably using just the flatter end and then just weld something right to there. So that's the idea. But at the moment, I think I could probably pick up the frame using that, and the welds are relatively strong. Ugly, but strong. So one of the cool ideas that I had was potentially using the, oh geez, steering column from the Infinity, because actually let me show you it in action. This is the steering column right here. I would end up having to cut this whole assembly off just because it's heavy and it doesn't serve any purpose. But essentially what this is a placed amount of steering wheel is right here, and then when I turn this, it's a 1-to-1 ratio to down there. So I wouldn't be using the steering box from the assembly, from the Infinity I mean. Well, I guess it is the steering assembly, but I could potentially use this as a shaft, which would be cool. So the steering wheel would go there. I'd have to make something because I don't have the Infinity wheel anymore. And then down here I'd probably have to cut off this U-joint and then weld in something for my own uses. Because basically what the steering is going to be, and we can use this as a demo, is it'll be like a stick coming off of here. Maybe, I don't know, do I have something? Okay, I have this little eyelet. So it'll be something like this coming off of here. And then as it turns, like the wheel turns, just kind of picture it there because I can't hold it and do this at the same time, but it'll turn to the right, it'll turn to the left, and that will pull some pieces. So when I turn it to the right, it'll be like this, it'll push, and when I turn to the left, it'll pull on that side, and that'll be pulling on some pieces that I intend to make for the wheels, and that's what those stud things were for, or spindles as I was calling them. The wheel will be attached to this, and it'll be attached to a piece as well over here. And what's going to happen is, obviously I want it to turn this way and this way when it goes left and right, so that means looking at it on this side, you can see that grinding wheel over there. That's sort of the side where the hole will be on, that'll connect to the piece here. And then obviously this needs to connect to the frame in some way, so that's kind of the next step. But basically, it is fairly simple. I just have to make some pieces for it and then also mount them to the frame. So that's kind of my next thing in mind here. This is going to work the same no matter if I choose to use this piece or not. It is big and heavy and kind of clunky, so maybe not, but it wouldn't be bad to use it. I think it'd be kind of fun actually, and funny to see an infinity part on something so dumb. It's the infinity parted go-kart, and I guess I can only really show you these things when I actually make them, so let me get started with that. So because I am an artist at heart, and I say that in an extremely joking manner, notice the not to scale thing up there. So this is basically what I'm attempting to build here, and I realize that that looks like a children's drawing, and that's because I guess I'm really a child at heart. But here's also another depiction of what I'm attempting to do here, and this is sort of the bolt that I'm thinking of. I might change it, but I kind of need to decide that soon. I'd love if it only had threads up to maybe here, and then the rest was like nice and shiny, but at the moment, I think it'll work like that. So that's kind of the plan. So basically what's going to happen is I need to make this dark C-shaped piece here, and that's approximately the right size, maybe a little bit bigger than that. But basically the bolt is going to go through that C-shaped thing. The C-shaped thing will be directly glued to this chassis, and it does not need to turn because this piece in here is going to be what's turning. So essentially something like, I don't know, say this piece of rubber here goes around the bolt, and it will turn theoretically freely of the bolt. Obviously it has to be a lot smaller than that. If you've ever seen what a go-kart spindle is, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, but I feel like I need to explain it both for myself and for you as well. But I'm gonna be getting like a small sleeve, I guess, that'll basically be just this size here. We'll have to do washers or something because I don't want metal rubbing up against metal there whenever I'm turning. We could probably grease it, and we're likely gonna have to. But that little jacket that goes over top of this, which I haven't found anything yet, so I need to do that, will be glued to this piece here. And essentially that little jacket is going to hold the weight of the entire wheel, and therefore the weight of one corner of the go-kart chassis. And that's what's going to be used to turn it. So I actually need to make 2 of those, and because this is just a proof of concept, I'm still working on just trying to design it, basically. With the materials I have, I need to figure out if this is actually feasible. Obviously, it'd probably be cheaper to buy them, but the whole point of this, again, and I will probably say this too much, is to learn how to weld, to learn how to fabricate, to learn how to build things myself, because I feel like this is something that I'm interested in, but also kind of, I have that aptitude, and I really, really want to keep working on this, so that's kind of what I'm doing. The sun is setting, so I'm not going to be able to get this all done today, but I may actually have a full go-kart by the end of the week. We'll see. Hey everyone, it's been a few weeks since I recorded those last clips. It is now 2022, and this is the day after I was supposed to be starting at my new job, but unfortunately it got delayed due to virus, so I'm here now in the garage, just trying to work on some things. It is freezing. Yesterday it was -15, I think. Today is -2, but it honestly still feels like -15. It's a cold -2 today, and I'm trying to get some stuff done on the go-kart. So let me show you what I've done so far this morning. It's very likely that I mentioned this a few times, but I have actually got something to show for it now. This is my spindle setup, I guess. It looks real jank, and that's because I haven't cleaned it off or painted it, and honestly I won't do that until I know that it's actually going to work. But I'll show you it closer in a bit. This is sort of the overall thing, minus that dolly there that I made, that we're going for. The width on that wheel I think is too much, so I'm going to cut a bit off of my extension, but generally this is what I'm after. Maybe half this length out. I just think it has to be out a little bit. Oh yeah, there have been some additions to the garage, including this toolbox, thanks to my wife, for my Christmas and also our anniversary gift. So I'm pretty happy about that. A lot more space for tools. And yeah, I don't know. Everything else is still here. Nothing else has changed. Just boxes and garbage, and I need to do some rearranging and stuff. Like, this whole section really needs to be cleared. I'd like to put my snowblower there and then maybe put another car in the garage, but at the moment we're not quite there yet. Okay, so the gist of what's going on here is I need to put an extension on the chassis for my wheel setup, because otherwise our turning radius is going to suck. Usually go-karts are fairly wide. This one kind of needs to be wide because it is also very long. So if it's not wide, then it's going to have a crap steering radius. But as you can see there, I think that's just a little too much. However, once I cut that down, fairly easy to do, then I'm going to start to weld. But the thing is that it took me a long time to make just one spindle, and I've got to make another, otherwise we're not going to be able to steer. So taking a look at the spindle itself, it might still be hot. I was just welding on this a couple of minutes ago. It's warm. But basically, we have the piece that came off of the power washer. This is the axle, I guess, off the power washer. Obviously, there were two of them. But that just goes in there. And that's what's holding the wheel on at the moment. And then the back of that thing is welded to a thin plate, which is welded to these bolts, which are free from the other pieces that you can see here. Just ignore that. But they're just welded to that plate as well, so that all of this moves in unison. This fairly high-grade bolt here is just basically a pin, and that's going to be used for this piece here, which is the one that connects to the chassis. These welds are not amazing, so I don't have too much confidence in this entire design, to be honest with you. Realistically, I should just buy some. I think spindles are fairly cheap online or maybe used somewhere. But a lot of this experience is making it, and making it is kind of fun. As much of a pain as it is with my current setup, it is a decent amount of fun to do. So I have a few scrap pieces. I'll have more once I cut some off the end of that, and then yeah, it's basically just making this, finishing this, and then the idea is, obviously this isn't totally done yet. What I need to do is add a steering piece to this. So what that looks like, just as a frame of reference, is say we have this metal piece here. It would come off of about there, perhaps, extend out quite a bit, have a hole drilled in the end of it, and then that is going to move as the wheel turns. Because that's what I needed to do. So fairly simple in concept. Basically from really sketchy drawing to this has taken a few hours, but it's been worth it. One of the big holdups that I had a while ago was I couldn't drill holes in metal, which is dumb. All my drill bits sucked. So I went out and I got some of these tapered drill bits, and this drilled the hole that it took me an hour to get in less than a minute. So it pays to have the right tools. Okay, so this is where I'm at as of now. Yeah, so I decided to leave that piece on there because I wanted more surface area to weld to. My welds are, as always, terrible, but getting a little bit better. This side in particular is not too bad. I am getting better, I swear, but at the same time I am getting worse in some ways, as one of them kind of had a bit of a blowout on that side, so I may have to patch that. But overall, I'm fairly pleased with the location of this spindle, and also the width of the track width and that kind of thing. It also has, if you can see there, a little bit of camber, which is what I wanted. So yeah, Go Kart is well, Go Kart steering, I guess, is on the way. If you want to see with the wheel, I'll try and figure this out. Okay, so this is what it looks like with the wheel, and wheel all the way turned, that side. I think that's more steering lock than I would even want, so that was one of my concerns. That's one of the reasons to push the wheel out further. And same thing on the other side, more steering lock than I would actually want. And what I'll actually get as well, because I'm sure that my steering arm is going to hit the end of the frame there before anything else does. So yeah, the steering arm, I'm thinking I might use this piece here because it's already got some holes in it. I'll just drill them out bigger and cut that and weld it. Specifically, I'm going to weld it to that spot right before the wheel because that is sort of optimal in terms of my geometry. I'm not sure. Well, I think it'll hold my weight with having two of these, but I mean, I don't weigh very much. But having it on both sides, I don't know. If I go over a bump and the tire is too hard to absorb it, I'm sure that I'll probably break something in this because it's literally just like small metal welded together. But that's kind of the fun of this. If I end up breaking it, I can still cut that off, weld a proper spindle on, and then keep going. That's sort of the way I'm designing this. So it's been a few hours. Some of those were lunch, some of those were basking in the sun because it came out, and I was very happy to see it. But you can see there's a dolly on the back, and that's because I have the complete front done. Yes, sir. She now rolls on the front end. My next order of business is to design a steering mechanism. Which is going to be tough. So this is the one that you've seen before. And then this one, which you have not seen, is the new one, and yes, it is upside down, at least relative to that one, but the reason is because I wanted to keep that piece there, and I got too lazy to cut it and weld it back in, so I decided to just put it like that. So if you look really, really closely, it's probably hard to tell on camera, but well, everything is sloppy for one. This wheel, just to give you an example, there's a little bit of movement on the shaft there, just a touch. So I have some work to do in that regard. I didn't make the shafts the same length. I probably should have done that. This wheel is at this point half an inch further out than this wheel, which is a bit of an issue. So what I'm going to do is I need to get some washers to space that thing out anyways. So I'm going to space it out on the other side, and then this one I will space out on its current side. As you can see, there's a bit of a gap there, so I need some washers to make that work. As you can tell, this has been thoroughly hacked together, and that's kind of the point. But again, just practicing. Not great at welding. Really, really bad actually, this one. But I am getting better slowly. So that's the goal. Man, it was pretty difficult to make this side. I guess I can kind of show you some of my things. So here's what it looks like up close. You can see that one nut there is looking a little suspicious, and that's because I didn't have another one of these big ones to weld that on there. So I had to make one, including drilling a hole through it, thanks to my new stepping drill bits that didn't actually take too long. I'm surprised it actually worked. I would not have been able to do that previously, but I drilled through a bolt and basically welded a washer to it, and that became my new nut, because obviously threads don't matter in this case. But yeah, now it's time to design the steering mechanism. So my idea is, because these pieces here are both, that's probably a bit too hot for me to touch, but they're both fairly similar in terms of length from the chassis. So my idea at the moment is to base the steering off that, but I need to sit down in this cart and see if this shatters. That's why the back end is there, because I need to test to see if this is actually going to work or not. All right, let's see if she breaks when I sit down on her. The seat is still extremely flimsy, so I need to reinforce it. Oh, goodness. Oh, this feels strange. You know, it's not bad actually, other than the seat flexing. It's not bad. The more that I look at this, the more I realize that it's as big as a snowmobile. It's massive, and I don't know where I'm going to put it when this is all done. It's another lovely day out here. It's raining, but this is the day after yesterday when I was filming, getting some stuff done on this. But I just wanted to talk about a few things. So now that this seat has been reinforced, to say the least, it's got a full extra bar. By the way, I know that this thing is going to be way too heavy for its engine, but at this point I'm just building it to build it, and we'll cut off things that aren't needed as necessary, because obviously some weight reduction would be nice. But in doing that, the angle of my seat has gone up considerably and it's extremely uncomfortable. So what I'm going to do is I'll give myself a little bit more back room by taking off this extreme thing, and then I'm going to reverse it, and I'll attach some of the styrofoam that I have over here to the underside of it. So hopefully that'll make it a little bit more comfortable and allow me to sit back a little bit further. But other than that, I was kind of sitting in here thinking about how I want to place the steering, and the general gist of it is I need to, well, luckily for me, there are some holes already lined up there, but basically I need to add the steering column I plan to use in, and then we need to make some tie rods, and that's going to be interesting. I gotta cut that little piece off of the end of there, and or either that or just weld it tight basically. And then I'm hoping that by the end of the day today I can have a rolling at the front and steering go-kart. Now there are going to be no brakes at the front, there won't be anything other than steering at the front, so weight balance is basically just on the rear, and the rear end is what I'm having trouble with because of budget. Obviously, I need a clutch or a torque converter or something for my engine, and I need an axle and wheels, and obviously a chain and a gear for the axle. At the very minimum, obviously I could do some other things as well. Plus, I need some bearings for the axle to run in. All of this stuff I could buy, but I'm really trying to not spend very much money on this. And so far, everything that I've been using has been free, except for electricity. So it kind of pains me to think about spending $200 possibly on all that stuff. I found a kit on Amazon that basically has brakes with it too, which I would intend to use as a handbrake on the side. I'm thinking about it, but it's going to take some convincing to from my wife to let me buy that. It would be useful, no doubt, but it's a little bit pricey, so I don't know. That's kind of where I stand at the moment. I'm definitely going to be able to get the front done soon, but the back, I don't know. If you guys have any suggestions of things I could scrap to find parts like that, like snowblowers and stuff, then please let me know. I'd love to find a scrap snowblower somewhere and piece it all together, but I don't know if that's actually going to be possible. But anyway, let me get to the cutting and welding and general nonsense that's going to make me have some steering in this thing. Okay, there has been some progress. Obviously there's no steering wheel, but this is actually attached now. I basically decided to just weld it straight to the frame in two places, although not the best of connections. It is relatively sturdy, and it moves along with the frame instead of individually, which is good. So I think that plus the steering rod in there will make it nice and sturdy. I know usually these are connected with sort of an archway, but mine is not that simple. Nothing is ever as easy for me, just because I'm trying to do it on the cheap. So that's kind of what I've come up with. What I'm going to end up doing is if I don't use this big wing here for controls, I'm going to cut that off. And same thing with this wing at the bottom here. I'm going to cut off that side piece because I think it'll block my foot. But that's a little bit of weight reduction possibility there, I guess. Everything else is going to end up staying. I assume I might take off that plastic handle, I don't know. But the gist of it is, it's really hot right now, so I don't want to sit in it, but I'll wait a couple of minutes here, and then I got to sit down and design for myself a front turning method, because at the moment I've got the pieces together. I just need to extend this bar out a little bit. That U-joint or joint, whatever it is welded, mostly shut, so it shouldn't turn anymore, but at the same time I might need to do a little bit more welding on that. And then I need to connect these wheels together, although I feel like that's going to be relatively difficult. But yeah, I'm up for it. Let's see if I can't just have a steering chassis today, and maybe I can roll around on it a little bit. Like I said, next time I'll be working on the back end, and the back end will probably be more assembly and drilling than it will be welding, depending on what kind of situation I end up with that. But either way, I'm going to have to wait for parts to arrive. So yeah, let's get working on this front end, see if I can finish it off today. Okay, it's been a bit of a leap since the last segment, but I have attached a wheel to the steering, and as you can see, it kind of works. Not really though. I think there's something off with my design. At the moment I have a state-of-the-art steering wheel made by Husky of all brands. So that's what I'm using just to kind of figure out how this is going to work. And I only did one side because obviously if it doesn't work, then I'm going to have to cut it off and try again. We got the steering shaft coming out to that piece there, which has now been welded, coming out to the part that came out of it originally, which if you want to see, kind of looks like that, and that is removable, so if I mess this up I can try something else. But that is welded very loosely to a piece of metal, which is connected to a rod that used to hold up the engine, connected to a piece off the side of this, and it turns. You can see that the wheel is turning. The system kinda works, kinda. The problem is at the moment it's got not a lot of turning radius, and I feel like that's probably just because the piece that I have on here is not big enough. So that's sort of my learning experience with this, where I'm basically just experimenting. But what I'll do is I'll weld another piece onto that, and then hopefully we can get a little bit more lock out of it, because that's as far as it goes to the right at the moment, and mostly to the left there. So not ideal, but a start, I guess. Yeah, it's started to snow rain again, which is fun, so I'm gonna pack it in for today. But pretty decent progress so far, pretty decent. I'm happy with this outcome. I just have to think about this more and sort of what I want to do with it. The way that this is angled, it makes sense that it turns better to the left, and then again it doesn't turn very well to the right because of the way that I've set it up. So I might have to just completely redo this steering design, which is unfortunate, but we'll see. I got to think about this more. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this first look at the Go Kart project. I'll be putting this up as soon as I can. Hopefully you're enjoying it, though. If you have any tips for me, then let me know. If your tips are just your welds suck, then yes, I agree with you, but that's not very helpful. I need more specific things than that. But yeah, I'll see you soon.